Lieutenant Jack Morrison stared at the radar screen in disbelief. The object that had appeared near Neptune's orbit was massive, at least 3 kilometers long, and it had simply materialized out of nowhere. No approach vector, no light speed, delay. One moment empty space, the next moment something impossible. "Control, this is Patrol Ship Vigilant," Jack said, keeping his voice steady despite the adrenaline rushing through his system. "We have an unidentified object in Sector 7. Request immediate verification and instructions." The reply came back fragmented through static. "Vigilant, confirm. All stations. Same reading. Stand by." Jack's co-pilot, Susan Kelly, looked up from her own instruments. "Whatever it is, it's broadcasting something. Wide spectrum, multiple frequencies." Before Jack could respond, the communication system came to life with a voice that sounded almost human, but with an odd musical quality that made the hairs on Jack's neck stand up. "People of Earth, we extend greetings from the Galactic Concord. Your world has reached the technological threshold for first contact. We come in peace and fellowship." 12 hours later, Jack found himself in a situation he had never trained for. Instead of completing his patrol route and returning to the lunar base, he was sitting in a hastily assembled meeting room at United Nations headquarters in New York, watching world leaders attempt to process the reality of first contact with an alien civilization. The aliens called themselves Aldebarans. They stood nearly 7 feet tall with blue-tinted skin that seemed to shimmer under the lights. Most striking were their forearms and large expressive eyes that changed color with their emotions. The lead diplomat, Ambassador Kavala, spoke perfect English and 6 other Earth languages. "Lieutenant Morrison," General Laura Holt said, breaking Jack's fascinated observation of the aliens, "given that you were first on scene, we're assigning you to the security detail for our diplomatic team." Jack straightened in his chair. "Yes, ma'am. You'll be working directly with Dr. Olivia Grant. She's been appointed as Earth's primary ambassador to the Concord delegation. Dr. Grant was a respected diplomat with experience in international crisis management. She had negotiated peace treaties in 3 global hotspots and was known for her calm demeanor under pressure. She was also, Jack noted as she entered the room, surprisingly young for someone with her credentials, perhaps in her late 30s. "Lieutenant," she acknowledged with a nod. "I understand we'll be working together." "It seems so, Ambassador," Jack replied, still trying to process how quickly his life had changed. 24 hours ago, he had been on a routine patrol. Now he was part of humanity's first contact team. The following days passed in a blur of briefings, diplomatic protocols, and security arrangements. The Aldebarans had extended an invitation for Earth to send representatives to the Centennial Assembly of the Galactic Concord, a federation of over 300 spacefaring species. There, Earth could petition for membership and establish formal relations with the galactic community. 30 nations would send delegates, with Dr. Grant leading the unified Earth delegation. Jack and a small team of international security personnel would ensure their safety. 3 days before departure, Jack noticed something odd during a planning session aboard the Aldebaran vessel. Whenever human security personnel approached with their standard sidearms, the Aldebaran seemed unusually tense. Their eye colors shifted to a deep purple, which Jack had learned indicated anxiety or concern. During a break, Jack approached Ambassador Kavala. "I've noticed your people seem uncomfortable around our weapons. Is there a cultural taboo we should be aware of?" Kavala's eyes flickered briefly to purple before settling on a diplomatic blue. "It is not a taboo, Lieutenant Morrison. It is simply awareness. You will understand when the time comes. For now, know that your weapons will be unnecessary aboard the Concord vessel." Jack frowned. "With respect, Ambassador, standard protocol requires us to provide security for our delegation." "Of course," Kavala said with a gesture that Jack had learned was their equivalent of a smile. "And you shall. But there are protocols within the Concord that must be observed by all new species. I assure you, your delegation will be safe." Jack reported the conversation to Dr. Grant later that day as they reviewed the manifest for the journey. "What do you think they're not telling us?" Dr. Grant asked, her intelligent eyes studying Jack's face. "I'm not sure," Jack admitted. "But I get the feeling they're not concerned about our weapons because they're afraid we'll use them. It's almost like they're worried for a different reason. Dr. Grant nodded thoughtfully. Keep observing. First contacts are delicate, and we're at a disadvantage in terms of information. Every detail matters. She smiled slightly. That's why I requested you specifically for my security detail, Lieutenant. Your initial reports showed remarkable attention to detail. The day of departure arrived with global attention focused on the historic mission. The Aldebaran vessel that would transport them to the Concorde was a marvel of technology that defied Earth's current understanding of physics. Gleaming white with flowing lines that seemed to shift when viewed from different angles, it hovered silently above the United Nations spaceport, constructed specifically for this moment. Jack stood with 7 other security officers from different nations as Dr. Grant addressed the assembled delegates. 30 men and women who would represent humanity to the stars for the first time. Today we stand at the threshold of a new era, she said, her voice clear and confident. We carry with us the hopes and dreams of our entire species. We go not just as representatives of our individual nations, but as ambassadors for Earth and all its peoples. As the delegation prepared to board, Ambassador Kavala approached Jack. Lieutenant, there is one matter we must address before departure. Yes. Ambassador? According to Concord protocols, your security team must surrender all weapons before boarding. They will be safely stored and returned upon your eventual return to Earth. Jack frowned. That wasn't mentioned in our briefings. It is a standard procedure, Kavala said, eyes shifting to that now familiar purple. All delegations must comply. After a quick consultation with Dr. Grant and General Holt via secure communication, Jack reluctantly agreed. The security team surrendered their weapons, though none of them were happy about it. As Jack boarded the vessel behind Dr. Grant, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to this weapons protocol than the Aldebarans were saying. Something in the way they watched the humans, a mixture of curiosity, caution, and what almost seemed like respect. The massive doors of the Aldebaran ship closed behind the Earth delegation, and Jack felt the slight shift as the vessel prepared for departure. Through a viewing port, he watched Earth grow smaller, a blue marble against the blackness of space. They were on their way to the stars, to meet a community of intelligent species that had been watching Earth for who knew how long, and for some reason, these advanced aliens seemed nervous about humans carrying weapons. Jack settled into his seat next to Dr. Grant as the ship accelerated beyond anything he had experienced before. Whatever awaited them at the Galactic Concorde, he had a feeling humanity was in for some surprises, and based on the Aldebaran's reactions, perhaps the Concorde was in for some surprises about humans as well. 3 months passed aboard the Aldebaran vessel as it traveled through what the aliens called fold space. For Jack and the rest of the Earth delegation, it was both the longest and shortest journey of their lives. The ship contained artificial environments that simulated Earth conditions, but occasional visits to the observation deck reminded them they were farther from home than any humans had ever been. Jack spent much of his time observing the Aldebaran crew, noting their behaviors and interactions. Despite being disarmed, he took his security duties seriously. Dr. Grant encouraged this, often asking for his impressions after meetings with Kavala and other Aldebaran officials. They're hiding something, Jack told her one evening as they shared a meal in the Earth delegates' common area. Not necessarily something dangerous, but they're definitely not telling us everything about this Concorde. Dr. Grant nodded. I've noticed the same. Whenever I ask specific questions about other species' reactions to humans, they change the subject. Finally, after what the Aldebarans measured as 92 Earth days, an announcement came over the ship's communication system. Honored Earth delegates, we will arrive at Harmony Station within 6 hours. Please prepare for arrival procedures. The observation deck filled quickly as word spread. Jack stood beside Dr. Grant as the ship emerged from fold space, and for a moment everyone fell silent. Harmony Station wasn't simply a space station, it was an artificial world. A massive sphere surrounded by rings of docking structures and what appeared to be defense systems. Even at their distance, Jack could see ships of various designs moving around the station like bees around a hive. My God, whispered Chief Security Officer Linda Blackwell, who had been placed in charge of the entire Earth security detail. It's bigger than Earth's moon. Kavala, who had joined them on the observation deck, nodded. Harmony Station is the heart of the Concord, constructed over 4 centuries by the combined efforts of 200 species. It is here that the great decisions affecting our shared galaxy are made. The docking procedure took nearly an hour, and when the Earth delegation finally stepped through the airlock into Harmony Station, Jack felt a moment of disorientation. The gravity was lighter than Earth standard, and the air carried unfamiliar scents. But it was the beings waiting to greet them that truly drove home how far they were from Earth. Besides more Aldebarans, there were at least a dozen different species visible. Some were vaguely humanoid, others completely alien. Jack saw what appeared to be floating clouds of gas contained in transparent fields, crystalline structures that moved on their own, and beings that seemed to shift form as he watched them. Dr. Grant stepped forward as Earth's primary ambassador, her diplomatic training holding despite the extraordinary circumstances. On behalf of Earth and all its nations, we extend greetings to the Galactic Concord. We come in peace and with hope for friendship. A tall, willowy being with silver skin and elongated limbs stepped forward. I am Director Cillian of the Diplomatic Corps. On behalf of the 327 member species of the Concord, I welcome humanity to Harmony Station. The welcome ceremony was brief, followed by what Director Cillian called orientation procedures. The Earth delegation was led to a sector of the station apparently prepared specifically for them, with environments adjusted to Earth norms. Your species will have 3 standard cycles to acclimate before the formal introduction to the assembly, Cillian explained. During this time, you may explore the public areas of Harmony Station. Guides will be provided. As the delegation settled into their quarters, Linda called the security team together. First order of business is to retrieve our weapons from storage and establish proper security protocols. A nervous-looking Aldebaran liaison named Zenny shifted uncomfortably. I apologize, Officer Blackwell, but there has been a modification to that plan. Linda straightened, her expression hardening. Explain. The Concord Security Directorate has requested that human security personnel remain unarmed during their stay on Harmony Station, Zenny said, eyes flashing purple. This is a special consideration for your species. Special consideration? Linda asked, her voice dangerously calm. Every other security force on this station is armed. I saw them during our arrival. Yes, Zenny admitted. But there are protocols regarding new species, and humans have a unique classification. Jack stepped forward. What classification is that exactly? Before Zenny could answer, the door to their meeting room opened and a new alien entered. This one was reptilian in appearance, with red scales and yellow eyes. Unlike the tall Aldebarans, this being was short and stocky, wearing what appeared to be a uniform with insignia. I am Zindi, Security Director for Harmony Station, the reptilian being said in a raspy voice. I understand there is confusion about your security protocols. Linda stepped forward. Director, with all due respect, my team cannot properly protect our delegation without appropriate tools. Standard diplomatic procedure is different here, Cindy interrupted. Your Aldebaran friends should have explained more clearly. The reptilian turned to Jack and the other security officers. It is not a matter of trust, it is a matter of special dispensation due to human physiology. Jack frowned. Our physiology? What does that have to do with security protocols? Cindy's scaled face was difficult to read, but Jack thought he saw something like discomfort in those yellow eyes. All will be explained in time. For now, please understand that this is for the benefit of all, including your delegation. You will be permitted to observe all security operations and coordinate with my team. The reptilian turned to leave, then paused. And please understand, this is not a restriction unique to humans. Each species has certain protocols based on their specific capabilities. After Zindi left, Linda turned to her team. I don't like this, but will adapt. Jack, you stay with Dr. Grant at all times. The rest of you, standard rotation with the other delegates. Keep your eyes open and report anything unusual. The next day, Dr. Grant was scheduled to meet with representatives from various conquered factions. Jack accompanied her to a vast chamber filled with beings of all descriptions. He noticed that many delegations had armed security, though the weapons varied wildly from what appeared to be energy weapons to more primitive-looking devices. During the meetings, Jack observed something odd. Many of the alien representatives seemed fascinated by human hands. One small reptilian diplomat named Zila, from a species called the Vrel, approached Dr. Grant during a break. "Your manipulative appendages," Zila said, indicating Dr. Grant's hands. "May I observe them in use?" Dr. Grant, though clearly finding the request unusual, picked up a stylus from the table and demonstrated writing, then folded a piece of paper into a simple bird shape. Zila watched with what Jack could only interpret as amazement. "Such precise control with no specialized adaptations," the alien murmured. "And your security officer," she turned to Jack, "you have the same capabilities?" Jack demonstrated by quickly disassembling and reassembling his communication device. "All humans have similar manual dexterity, though some have more training for specific tasks." "Fascinating," Zila said, "and somewhat concerning in context." "What context?" Dr. Grant asked sharply. Zila's scaled skin flushed a deeper red. "Oh, merely comparative xenobiology. Nothing important." As they left that meeting, Dr. Grant whispered, "To Jack, they're treating us like we're somehow dangerous, yet I've seen species here that could clearly tear a human apart without effort." Jack nodded. "And have you noticed how they react when we pick things up? It's almost like they're waiting to see what we'll do with them." Over the next 2 days, the pattern continued. The Earth delegation was welcomed warmly, but watched carefully. And everywhere they went, the humans remained the only ones whose security personnel carried no weapons of any kind. On the 3rd day, Dr. Grant was scheduled to meet with representatives of a group called the Vorn Hegemony, one of the few factions that had expressed reservations about Earth joining the Concord. "Be especially alert," Linda told Jack before the meeting. "Intelligence says the Vorn are militaristic and have opposed the addition of several other species in the past." Jack nodded, wishing not for the first time that he had his sidearm. Something about this entire situation felt wrong, and he couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something much more complicated than a simple diplomatic introduction. He was right, but not in any way he could have possibly expected. The meeting with the Vorn hegemony did not go well. The Vorn were massive beings with gray armored skin and 4 yellow eyes. They arrived wearing what Jack recognized as battle armor, complete with sealed helmets that hid their faces. Their translator devices gave their voices a harsh, grating quality that matched their apparent attitude toward humans. "We have studied your species," the Vorn leader, War Captain Graz, told Dr. Grant. "Your historical records show constant warfare. Your technology advances primarily through military development. You are dangerous and unpredictable." Dr. Grant maintained her diplomatic composure. "While we don't deny that conflict has been part of our history, humanity has made great strides toward peace and cooperation. Our presence here demonstrates our desire to join the galactic community as peaceful partners." The Vorn made a sound that the translator rendered as a scoff. "Words, empty words. We have seen this before. The conquered grows soft, admitting species that will eventually threaten our collective security." The meeting ended with the Vorn delegation abruptly standing and leaving, their heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. Jack noticed they kept unusual distance from the humans, more so than seemed necessary even given their obvious distrust. That went about as expected. Dr. Grant sighed as they left the meeting chamber. "Though I'm more confused than ever about their specific objections. If they're concerned about human warfare, why are they the ones in full battle armor while we're completely unarmed?" Jack had no answer, but his instincts told him they were missing something important. The next day, a full week into their stay on Harmony Station, those instincts proved correct. The Earth delegation was attending a large gathering in the Central Assembly Chamber, a vast room with seating for hundreds of different species arranged in tiered semicircles. The chamber buzzed with the sounds of dozens of languages being simultaneously translated through the remarkable Concord technology. Dr. Grant was scheduled to give Earth's formal petition for membership, a significant moment. For humanity, Jack stood behind her seat, scanning the crowd out of habit, noting the various security personnel from other species positioned throughout the chamber, all armed except for the humans. The proceedings had just begun when the chamber doors slammed, shut with a heavy metallic sound. Alarms began to blare and the main viewing screens around the chamber flickered before displaying the image of a being Jack didn't recognize. Tall, thin, with pale skin and large black eyes. "Attention representatives of the Concord," the being announced, its voice cold and precise. "This chamber is now under the control of the Proxima Collective. We have disabled the station's internal security systems and control all access points to this sector." Chaos erupted as delegates began shouting questions and demands. Security personnel from various species moved to protective positions around their delegates, weapons drawn. "Remain calm," the being continued. "We have no desire for unnecessary violence. We simply require the Concord to recognize our territorial claims in the Orion Spur and cease all expansionary activities in that region. Until these demands are met, this chamber will remain sealed and you will remain our guests." As the being spoke, figures in black armor entered the chamber from service doors around the perimeter. They carried advanced-looking weapons and moved, with military precision. Jack counted at least 20 of them. "Proxima Collective," Linda whispered as she moved closer to Jack and Dr. Grant. "Intelligence mentioned them, an isolationist faction that broke away from the Concord 30 years ago. They're supposed to be peaceful separatists." "Not anymore, apparently," Jack replied, watching as the armed intruders began herding delegates into the center of the chamber. One of the intruders approached the Earth delegation. "You, humans, move to the front with the other high-value delegates." Jack stepped slightly in front of Dr. Grant. "We'll comply. No need for threats." The intruder gestured with his weapon. "Move." At the front of the chamber, Jack saw that several other delegates had been separated from the main group, mostly those from influential Concord members. Security Director Zindi was among them, his scales a pale orange color that Jack guessed indicated stress. "I don't understand," Dr. Grant whispered as they were forced to sit. "How did they bypass the station's security? I thought this place had the most advanced defense systems in the galaxy." "Inside help, perhaps," Jack suggested. "Or they found a vulnerability no one expected." Hours passed. The Proxima forces maintained strict control of the chamber, allowing no communication with the outside. Their leader, who identified himself only as speaker, informed them that negotiations were underway with the Concord leadership outside the chamber. Jack used the time to observe the intruders carefully. Their armor appeared to include personal shield technology. He could see a slight shimmer around them when they moved quickly. Their weapons were energy-based and, judging by the respect other species showed them, quite lethal. But he also noticed something else. The Proxima forces seemed most concerned about the Aldebaran and Vorn delegates, largely ignoring the humans except to ensure they stayed in place. It was as if they considered humans a minor concern compared to other species. This changed when Commander Sam Winters, the highest-ranking military human in the delegation, approached one of the guards. Jack couldn't hear the exchange, but he saw the guard suddenly become agitated, pointing his weapon directly at Sam and backing away slightly. When Sam returned to the human group, Jack asked what happened. "I offered to help negotiate," Sam said, looking puzzled. "Told him I had hostage resolution training. He reacted like I'd threatened him personally." As the situation stretched into its 6th hour, conditions in the chamber deteriorated. Environmental systems were not designed for so many beings confined in one space, and several delegates from more sensitive species were showing signs of distress. Shindy finally approached Speaker. "You must allow medical personnel to attend to the Emerald delegate. Their gaseous form requires specific atmospheric conditions. No one leaves until our demands are met," Speaker replied coldly. "They will die," Cindy insisted. That would be unfortunate. But may speed negotiations, Speaker said. Jack saw Dr. Grant's expression harden at this callous response. She stood up despite Jack's warning hand on her arm. Speaker of the Proxima Collective, she called out, her voice clear and commanding. I am Ambassador Grant of Earth. Our species is new to the Concord, and we have no part in your territorial dispute. Allow us to assist the suffering delegates as neutral parties. Speaker turned to face her. Humans. Yes, the new species. He studied her for a moment. You have no medical technology with you, Ambassador. How would you assist? We don't need technology to help, Dr. Grant replied. My security team includes personnel with emergency medical training. We can improvise. This caused a murmur among both the captives and captors. Speaker conferred briefly with another Proxima member before responding. Very well. 2 humans may attend to the morale delegate, but be warned, our shields and weapons make any attempt at heroics futile. Jack and Linda were selected to help the morale delegate. As they approached the container holding the gaseous being, Zindi hurriedly explained the morale's needs. Their environmental unit is failing, he said. They require specific pressure and gas mixtures to maintain cohesion. Linda examined the unit. I can work with this. Jack, find me something flexible but strong like tubing or wiring, and something we can use as a sealant. As Jack searched the nearby area for materials, he noticed Zindi watching them with an odd expression. What? Jack asked as he located some cabling behind a panel. Nothing, Zindi replied. I am simply observing. Within 30 minutes, Linda had managed to repair the morale's environmental unit, using only the materials Jack had found and items from her own pockets. The gaseous being's color shifted from a sickly yellow to a healthier blue. As they returned to the human group, Jack overheard one Proxima guard say to another, Watch them closely. They can make tools from nothing. Jack filed this comment away, an idea beginning to form in his mind. He gathered the human security team and Dr. Grant. I think I know why they keep us unarmed, he whispered. And I think we might be able to use it to our advantage. Jack gathered the human security team in a tight circle, speaking in hushed tones while pretending to comfort one another. The Proxima guards watched, but couldn't hear their conversation. I think I understand why they keep humans unarmed in the assembly, Jack said. They're not afraid of our weapons, they're afraid of us making weapons out of ordinary things. Linda nodded slowly. That makes sense. Did you see how that guard reacted when I fixed the Memral's environmental unit? Like he was surprised but also worried. So what's the plan? Sam asked, his military training evident in his focused expression. Jack looked around the chamber, taking stock of what was available. We need to create a distraction and disable their shields. Their armor looks tough, but without shields, security forces outside could break through and help. What about communications? Dr. Grant asked. If we could contact the outside, let them know what's happening. Jack nodded. Good thinking. Linda, you and I will work on improvising some communication device. Sam, gather anything that could be useful. Decorative items, furniture components, anything not bolted down. What about me? Dr. Grant asked. Keep the diplomacy going, Jack said. Keep Speaker talking. The longer this goes on, the more materials we can gather and the more time outside forces have to position themselves. The humans dispersed casually, careful not to draw attention. Jack approached Zindi, who was sitting near one of the decorative water features that represented various homeworlds in the chamber. I need to know about the station's communication systems, Jack whispered. Are there any backup channels built into this chamber? Cindy's scales rippled with surprise. Yes, emergency systems in the podium, but they've been disabled. Can they be reactivated manually? Perhaps, but you would need to access the control panels beneath the speaker's platform. It's heavily guarded. Jack studied the ornate fountain nearby. What about the water systems? Do they connect to other sections of the station? They run through maintenance tunnels, Zindi replied, his yellow eyes widening as he understood Jack's thinking. You cannot be serious. The tunnels are too small for most species. But not for humans, Jack said. We're relatively small and flexible compared to many species here. Xindi's scales darkened. That's why you're not allowed weapons, he said, quietly. Your species doesn't need them to be lethal. Jack ignored the comment. I need a diversion in about 20 minutes. Can you help with that? Xindi hesitated, then nodded. The Vorn delegates, they have personal shield generators built into their armor. If they were to activate them simultaneously, perfect, Jack said. Meanwhile, Linda had collected several pieces of technology from willing delegates, communication devices, personal data units, even decorative electronic pins. Working behind a row of seats, she carefully disassembled them. Think I can boost a signal through the water pipes, she whispered when Jack returned. They're likely made of conductive material. If we can create enough power to punch through whatever jamming field they're using. Do it, Jack said. Sam and I will handle the diversion and shields. 20 minutes later, Xindi approached the Vorn delegation and spoke urgently. Jack couldn't hear what was said, but suddenly all 4 Vorn delegates activated their personal shields, creating a bright flash of energy that drew the attention of every Proxima guard. In the confusion, Jack moved quickly to the ornate fountain. Using a broken piece of chair leg, he pried off the decorative panel at its base, revealing the water circulation system beneath. The opening was small, but large enough for a human to squeeze through. What are you doing? A Proxima guard shouted, moving toward Jack with weapon raised. Sam stepped between them. He's trying to fix the water circulation. Several delegates need the humidity it provides. The guard hesitated, then approached cautiously. Step away from there. What happened next shocked everyone in the chamber. Sam grabbed a decorative metal rod from a nearby display, moving with such speed that the guard had no time to react. Before anyone could intervene, Sam had jammed the rod into a gap in the guard's armor at the joint where arm met shoulder. The guard's shield flickered and died. His weapon clattered to the floor. Chaos erupted. 2 more guards rushed forward. But Dr. Grant had already retrieved the fallen weapon. She didn't fire it, she didn't know how, but her confident grip was enough to make the guards pause. Nobody move, Speaker shouted. Your shields are impenetrable to primitive attacks. Are they? Sam asked calmly, picking up another decorative item, a heavy crystal award given to outstanding diplomats. Let's test that theory. The Proxima forces suddenly seemed unsure, their weapons tracking between various humans who were now all standing, all holding improvised tools or weapons scavenged from around the chamber. Jack used the distraction to slip into the opening beneath, the fountain. The maintenance tunnel was tight but navigable. He crawled quickly, following the water pipes until he reached a junction box. Inside, he found what he was looking for: communication wiring running alongside the water systems. Back. In the chamber, Linda had completed her improvised transmitter. She caught Dr. Grant's eye and nodded. They needed just a few more minutes. Dr. Grant stepped forward, still holding the Proxima weapon. Speaker, this has gone far enough. Your people are outmatched. Outmatched? Speaker laughed. By unarmed. Diplomats, our shields can withstand energy weapons. Your primitive tools cannot harm us, can't they? Linda asked, stepping forward with what appeared to be a small, crude device assembled from the various electronics she'd collected. This is a shield disruptor. Rudimentary, but effective at short range. It was a bluff. The device was actually their communication attempt, but the Proxima forces didn't know that. Several took steps backward, their weapons wavering. Impossible, Speaker said, but doubt had crept into his voice. You couldn't build such a device with the materials available? Sam smiled grimly. You clearly don't know much about humans. In the maintenance tunnel, Jack had successfully spliced into the communication system. He sent a quick encoded burst transmission with their situation and location. Within moments, he received a response. Security forces were positioned throughout the station and ready to breach the chamber on his signal. Jack made his way back through the tunnel and emerged beneath the fountain. The standoff in the chamber continued, with humans holding their ground using improvised weapons and tools against the increasingly nervous Proxima forces. Your shields have a fundamental weakness, Sam was saying, drawing on his military knowledge to sound convincing. They're designed to disperse energy from weapons, but concentrated force at the right joint. He hefted the crystal award. One of the Proxima guards fired at him, but Sam was already moving. The energy blast hit a wall behind him as he rolled forward and came up swinging the heavy crystal. It connected with the guard's leg armor at the knee joint, and again a shield flickered and failed. Other delegates, seeing the human success, began to fight back as well. The Vorn delegates charged forward, their massive bodies and personal shields creating chaos. The Aldebarans used their forearms to grab and disarm Proxima guards from multiple angles simultaneously. Jack caught Linda's eye and nodded. She activated her device, which sent a signal through Jack's spliced connection to the security forces outside. 3 seconds later, the chamber doors blew inward, and heavily armed Concord security forces poured into the room. The Proxima forces, already struggling against the unexpected human resistance, were quickly overwhelmed. Speaker attempted to use delegates as shields, but found himself facing Dr. Grant, who had managed to figure out how to activate the weapon she'd taken. "I wouldn't," she said calmly. Within minutes, the situation was under control. The Proxima forces were disarmed and detained, and medical teams attended to injured delegates. Jack, Linda, Sam, and Dr. Grant found themselves surrounded by aliens staring at them with expressions that ranged from awe to fear. Shindy approached, his scales now a bright orange that Jack hadn't seen before. "I believed the reports, but seeing it firsthand." He shook his head. "Now you understand why humans are not permitted weapons in the assembly. You simply don't need them." 3 days after the Proxima incident, the Earth delegation was invited to a special session of the Concord High Council. This was unusual treatment for a species that had not yet been granted membership. The chamber was smaller than the main assembly hall, with only 20 seats arranged in a circle around a central podium. Jack stood behind Dr. Grant as she took her assigned seat. He noticed the other security personnel in the room, all armed except for the humans, maintained a respectful distance from them. Word had spread quickly about what happened during the hostage situation. Elder Counselor Vreen, a tall being with pale blue skin and silver hair that seemed to float around her head like a cloud, called the session to order. She was one of the oldest members of the Concord leadership, representing a species called the Thalosians. This council has called this special session to address the events of 3 days ago and to discuss the petition of Earth for membership in the Galactic Concord. Vreen announced, her voice melodic yet powerful. "First, we wish to formally thank the Earth delegation for their actions during the Proxima attack. 27 delegates owe their lives to human intervention." Dr. Grant inclined her head respectfully. "We acted as any member of the Concord would. The safety of all was our primary concern." Vreen's expression was unreadable to Jack, but he thought he detected something like amusement in her silver eyes. "Perhaps. But not all would have been capable of what your species accomplished while completely unarmed." She turned to the other council members. "We must now address the question that has arisen. Why are humans restricted from carrying weapons in Concord assemblies?" A murmur went through the chamber. Jack realized this was a topic normally not discussed openly. "For the Earth delegation and for the official record, I will explain," Vreen continued. "When a new species reaches the technological threshold for first contact, the Concord conducts extensive research before approaching them. We study their biology, their history, their cultures. In humanity's case, this research led to a most unusual classification." Dr. Grant leaned forward. "What classification is that, Elder Counselor?" "In simple terms, humanity is what we call a persistent predator species with generalist capabilities." Vreen gestured to a large display screen where images from Earth appeared. Human history, warfare, but also creation and innovation. Most spacefaring species evolved as specialized organisms. The Aldebarans, for example, evolved as communal herbivores with multiple limbs for gathering different food sources. The Vorn evolved from heavily armored defensive herd animals. My own species, the Thalosians, evolved as filter feeders in our oceans. Jack began to understand. But humans evolved as hunters. Not merely hunters. Another council member interjected. This one was a crystalline being, whose voice seemed to come from the vibration of its structure. Persistence hunters who chased, prey to exhaustion, problem solvers who adapted to every environment on your world, tool users who can turn virtually any object into either a tool for creation or destruction. Your historical records, Vreen continued, show humans using everything from sharpened sticks to nuclear fission as weapons. There is no other species in the Concord that can turn virtually any object into a tool of war with such efficiency. Doctor? Grant frowned. Many species use tools and weapons. The Proxima forces had energy weapons far more advanced than anything we possess. Yes, Vreen agreed, but they require those specific weapons to be effective. Without them, they are limited by their biology and instincts. Humans, as you demonstrated so effectively, can weaponize a decorative fountain, communication devices, and even ceremonial objects. It's not just about weapons, Cindy added from his position near the door. His scales were now a calm blue. It's about adaptability and problem-solving in ways that most species find unexpected. When faced with a new situation, most species rely on evolved instincts or specific learned behaviors. Humans create new solutions instantaneously. Doctor? Grant was quiet for a moment, processing this information. So the weapons ban is because you fear humans? Not fear, Vreen corrected gently. Respect. Consider it this way, Ambassador. If one being has natural claws that cannot be removed, and another carries artificial claws that can be set aside, which would you ask to remove their weapons in a peaceful assembly? Jack found the logic sound, but unsettling. You're saying humans are inherently more dangerous than species that evolved specific biological weapons? Not more dangerous, Vreen replied. More unpredictable in how danger might manifest. The Vorn are powerful, but their responses are limited by their biology. Your responses are limited only by your imagination, which our studies indicate is unusually active even by the standards of intelligent species. The council fell silent for a moment before War Captain Graz of the Vorn hegemony spoke, his voice surprisingly subdued compared to their first meeting. The Vorn hegemony withdraws its objection to Earth's membership, he announced formally. We have witnessed the humans' capabilities firsthand. Better to have such beings as allies than potential adversaries. Dr. Grant turned to Jack with a raised eyebrow, clearly surprised by this sudden reversal. Jack shrugged slightly. It seemed their improvised resistance during the hostage situation had earned the respect of even their strongest critics. Vreen raised her hands for attention. We will now vote on Earth's petition for membership in the Galactic Concord. But first we must establish the conditions of that membership, including the weapons protocol. The vote, when it came, was unanimously in favor of Earth's membership. The conditions, however, included the formal codification of what would become known as the Human Protocol. Humans would be permitted to serve in all capacities within the Concord, including security and peacekeeping forces, but would remain unarmed in formal assemblies and diplomatic functions. This is not a punishment, a restriction, Vreen explained as the conditions were read. It is a recognition of your species' unique capabilities and an acknowledgement that you, unlike most, do not require manufactured weapons to be effective. As the session concluded and the Earth delegation prepared to return home with news of their successful petition, Zindi approached Jack privately. I must know, the Reptilian Security Director said. When you realized you were trapped in that chamber, were you afraid? Jack considered the question carefully. Concerned, yes, but afraid? No, not really. Humans are used to solving problems with limited resources. Zindi's scales rippled with what Jack now recognized as laughter. And that, Lieutenant Morrison, is precisely why you don't need weapons. Other species see a locked door as an impassable barrier. Humans see it as a puzzle to solve. 6 months later, Jack stood in the main assembly chamber on Harmony Station, watching as a new group of human representatives were formally inducted into various Concord operations. Dr. Grant, now officially Earth's ambassador to the Concord, stood at the podium delivering a speech about cooperation and shared knowledge. Jack wore a new uniform, having accepted a position as a training officer for the Concord's emergency response teams. Around him, security personnel from 24 species stood at attention, all armed with various weapons according to their traditions and biology. Only the humans carried no weapons. And for the first time, Jack understood that this wasn't a sign of distrust, but the highest form of respect for a species that could turn anything into a tool, a solution, or when necessary, a weapon. As he watched new human recruits enter the chamber, Jack smiled at the look of confusion on their faces when asked to surrender their weapons while other species kept theirs. One day they too would understand the peculiar honor in that request. And somewhere in the vastness of space, as news spread of the newest member of the Galactic Concord, other species would learn the strange protocol. Beware the humans. Not for the weapons they carry, but for their ability to turn anything into one.